All right. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. Super glad that you're able to join tonight. So, I wanted to talk. Oh, awesome. I wanted to talk tonight a little bit about parenting children who have anxious personality types. Um, we could be experiencing some kind of anxiety in our children really at any age. Um, yeah. Actually, I got really excited when I saw you joining there right at the end. I was just about to start and I was like, ooh, Amber, right on time. I know she's going to love this topic. But, you know, a lot of the ways, I want to start by acknowledging that a lot of the ways that anxiety manifests in our kids feels really exhausting to us because they lean on us for safety and comfort. We're kind of their rock throughout things and their guide. And um, so, from that perspective, it can be a little bit, extra exhausting and a little bit of extra work. And definitely, feel like a lot of situations are almost like, I don't know, for lack of better terms, like the situations feel more than they should be or could be. Like there's often when anxiety is involved, there's kind of a lack of flow to things because, there's fear or discomfort. For lack of better terminology about of like the actual feelings inside one's body when they're navigating through the ways that anxiety manifests in one's nervous system. They come up as really big, uncomfortable feelings of discomfort and fear and lack of safety and all of these other things. And so, as parents, oftentimes too, I want to add to this that, oftentimes so many of these things are also experiences that we've had in this world. They definitely can be incredibly genetic, and so a lot of us ourselves might be struggling with some feelings of anxiety as we go through our own days. And so managing anxiety in our kids can really be an extra load to all of the other things around us. The way that, like, I, in a simplistic breakdown of the feelings, um, it's a really deep topic. um, there's a lot to be said about anxiety, but when we're managing it on a day to day, some of the primary feelings that come up around anxiety are like a lack of safety, a lack of security, a lack of understanding of the unknown, all the things that worry us manifest that way as anxiety. And as parents, we do have like a lot of ability to, as adults for ourselves, we have a lot of ability to create space for ourselves, for our feelings of anxiety, and work with them in ways that help us navigate the day to day. Probably, a lot less tools than we may have had our parents been engaging in work around all of this stuff. And that again, another like piece of a very, very deep topic. When our kiddos are manifesting signs of anxiety, and like I said, it could come at very young ages. Like we see attachment anxiety manifesting in children at as little as newborn, and continuing on up to older ages, depending on a lot of different conditions and situations and things like that. And, a lot of this, as growth and development, and then turn can become, or oftentimes maybe even unrelated, like, the social anxieties and all of the other different manifestations of the ways that people experience anxiety, because people experience it around a lot of different things. Like they experience it around like social interactions and going out in public. They experience it around being separated from their loved ones. They experience it about worries on a larger social scale. Even, small children being living in this world or exposed to this world oftentimes. In fact, you know I talk a lot about how children are very justice minded, and oftentimes, kids, they're picking up and hearing things, and they hear something, and it really hits them in like ways that adults have kind of like numbed ourselves to a little bit. And, so, for whatever reasons, there's a lot of preface to even beginning to talk about like how to manage the day to day. Well, whatever the reasons our kids are going through, what they're going through, why, genetics, situations, environments, like all of the different things. um, when our kids are manifesting signs of anxiety, we see things like, they are oftentimes more easily emotionally compromised. They need a lot of extra love-ins, a lot of extra like verbal reassurance, and a lot of things that, I do want to acknowledge again that for a parent, these things can be a little bit exhausting. And, you know, we know for ourselves that there's a lot of things that we need when we're feeling anxious about things. And so, if our kiddos feeling anxious about any specific thing, or even just like, on broader scales, which again, like, because sometimes people experience anxiety without any specific like reasons or triggers or anything like that, because it's a genetic thing, and it's something that is often associated with chemical imbalances. And so the ways and the different ways it manifests for people and the different ways that they experience it are going to vary very broadly, um, person to person. Um, One of the biggest things, and I think this matters not only in relation to anxiety, but in relation to like just having relationships with our loved ones, like knowing our people, like who they are, the things that they do like and the things that they don't like, and trying to honor those things goes a really long way as far as figuring out how to help somebody when they're managing things that are difficult for them. And there's a lot of things. Some of them, like, the things that I talk about a lot, like the environmental stuff, like volumes and bright lights and loud noises and lots of people that can actually contribute to the overwhelm and those senses of anxiety getting a little bit higher. And so managing, like using our tools for those situations can be really helpful when, if we know that our kiddos have like certain capacities, similar to how we would, like, I would coach you to do for yourself in a certain situation. Like, I have a limit to how much I want to be out in this situation. And the thing is like, a lot of times people with anxiety, they want to do things and then they get to do the thing and the anxiety comes. And for the parent, that's kind of going to look like pushback or not going with the flow or even feeling like frustrated, which is the last thing that a person who's managing anxiety needs, because they need so much safety and security, um, to even, and here's the thing, like sometimes a person with anxiety, not just a child, like anybody with anxiety, might really want to do something. They might, want to take that class or go on that trip or, hang out with those friends or whatever those things are that they want to do. But when the thing comes up and the thing starts to happen, um, the anxiety starts to rise for them, and it makes it really hard for them to jump over any hurdles that come up for them. And so um that's where, again, like just like knowing our people and our kids, obviously they're newer to this world, and we're not even experts on our own feelings, and I'm getting better at it. Been working really hard to learn all this stuff for years and years and years, and I am getting better at being an expert at my own feelings, understanding them and what they mean, and navigating through them with grace as much as possible. But our kids, this stuff comes up for them in really big ways, and they don't even really understand it. It's like their body's just reacting to something. Their body's just feeling like something that they can't even really put into words. Because again, when it comes to anxiety, even for adults, it's really hard to put into words. There's a lot of different feelings throughout the nervous system that often lead people to even believe that like it's a physical problem. Like, like people will be saying things like, especially, when we take anxiety to the next level of the low rumble, which a lot of people live with on quite frequently. When we take it to the next level, it gets into like panic attacks. And a lot of people in those states, when they first started experiencing them, thought they were having like a heart attack because their nervous system and their heart rate and everything was getting that dysregulated with the anxiety getting that high. And hopefully by the time, like, before anything like that happens, we've leaned into resources and really helped our children. And if ever if ever the anxiety gets that high, like, we have our tools, which is, I want to stick on that path to talk a little bit about the tools for working through it. But we have our tools, and we also, like, if anxiety is really getting so high that it's affecting somebody's, like, quality of life, like, and there's certain points where we definitely need to reach out for outside help and support, like locally with um, therapy, diagnoses, counseling, possibly even at some point medications, just depending on like what a person is exactly experiencing, right? That's all independent journey stuff, and like, um, but it is important to mention, like, anxiety is a really, really hard thing to live with. And like, if you're managing a child with anxiety, I know I don't have to tell you that, because chances are, if you're managing a child with high anxiety, it's probably an experience that you've had yourself. I kind of mentioned that in the beginning. So, um, and so, it's a hard journey. It's something that I too have experienced and live with quite high levels of. And it really is like a difficult thing to navigate. A lot of the tools for navigating through it are around finding the different ways to regulate our nervous systems, whether that for us is like some of the breathing tools or visualization tools, or like, even sometimes if anxiety levels, however, sometimes even avoidance is a tool, like, like doing something that's distracts you from the thing that you're having this feeling over, because it's not always something that it's over. Like, that's not really the nature of anxiety, but sometimes we can distract ourselves, and sometimes that's okay. Like, we don't want to always be using like distraction from something, but sometimes if that's what we need, because sometimes our brains just need to check out from a minute for a minute anyways. Like, that's part of a reset from anxiety, and we guilt ourselves for that when we're like, oh no, I need to address this and work on it and like heal it and deal it right now. And sometimes it's okay to excuse ourselves from that for a minute and just let our brains rest. And a lot of times, in that place of like brain resting, then we can move away from that sense of impending doom that is anxiety, right? Um, so, and oftentimes I find when anxiety levels are getting high, um, active tools like getting up and moving around, shaking it out the fingertips, or other kinds of active tools can be really good helpers for a moment, like when anxiety gets high. Um, but those are the things that we might do to help ourselves in a moment when we're feeling overstimulated, overwhelmed, when we have anxiety, and things like that. And those are the tools that we work through ourselves and hopefully with our children to help learn which ones work for us and how we can implement those in like moments when somebody is feeling like a sense of impending doom. And sometimes, like, I think one thing that's really important, it's like there are things in life that sometimes we just got to do them. And there's things in life that we don't just have to do. And when things are optional, like, I'm not saying that just, because your child is experiencing anxiety, you have to give up, like, you know, every part of your lifestyle um, for that. But in the places where we can make adjustments, like making as many adjustments that are helpful as possible to help accommodate the things for your child is going to help them create more security around doing the things that create anxiety for them, and doing the things that they're having a hard time doing because this feeling is getting in the way. And um, it's so multi-tiered to talk about it because, like I was saying, it's like anxiety isn't necessarily connected to doing a thing, and it's not necessarily triggered by doing a thing. Sometimes it's just there with its steady roar in the background. And I I think, we'll start seeing that in our kids in these ways that, like I was saying, they're going to be more doing things that are seeking security. And so if we can find ways to offer that to them as much as possible, like, um, it's like they really need us to hold their hands, maybe perhaps a little bit longer than other kids need their hands held. In such a sense as, like, I'm right here. I'm spotting you. I've got you. I'm taking care of you. And a lot of times, the verbal doesn't help as much as it's intended to. Like, I think knowing our people, again, sometimes some people like a really clear, concise, clear, like, everything. And some people, they, it's like it's all too much information to take in, and they start processing it, and then these senses of doom start coming around more. And one thing that I think can be really helpful, like particularly if your kiddo is willing to engage in it as a tool, is the anxiety manifests itself in the same points in the nervous system as stress. Um, they'll feel it, like in their chest, in their stomachs, in their shoulders, necks, lower backs. And sometimes, you know, just a hug is really helpful because it presses on those spots on the nervous system. But sometimes applying pressure ourselves, or like teaching them how to apply pressure to those spots, like even pressure, like a hug, not like, hard pressure. But if you're experiencing anxiety and you feel that tension in your body, if you like kind of put your hands on the spots where you feel the tension, where you feel it like quenching your heart down, you like just kind of like, push up against it a little bit on your body. It actually allows all of that to relax a little bit. It's a really good one to teach our kids. You can put your hands on your lower back there. That's a big one where the tension builds up. You can actually try it. I'm doing it while I'm talking. You put your hands on your stomach, and it actually really does work to just like apply even pressure there, just like you're kind of like hugging it. And it allows those muscles to feel a little bit more relaxed and to feel safe and secure. Um, and also, like, one thing again is like if anxiety is getting really high, sometimes people are like worried how their like behavior might manifest, as in, like, if you start breathing really heavy, like doing deep breaths and stuff, that could be embarrassing. It draws lots of attention. It is a wonderful thing to do, and hopefully you're not breathing so hard, doing your deep breaths so loud you're drawing tons of attention. But, like, when our faces start burning and like anxiety gets high, turning into a panic attack and stuff like that. So giving ourselves a hug can actually like avoid a lot of that stuff. We're just putting the gentle pressure on those spots. And um, I think that children who manifest a lot of anxiety, what they need the most of is reassurance, which, you know, sometimes we can create a lot of space for that in our lives. Sometimes, it's a little bit harder to, like, there's more unknown things, um, things around, like death and other kinds of circumstances that may be a little bit more unknown. It's a lot harder to create security and reassurance around those things. Um, and, and again, I think sometimes those, might be times where a certain amount of talking, of course, is important. And sometimes more information might be too much. And again, like knowing our people, like what, and we can't always like be right or like do things right because we're human and we're going to make mistakes and we're navigating through territory where it's all different than it was for us, because when we were kiddos with high anxiety, um, you know, a good portion of us were pretty much just told to suck it up and do the thing anyways. And so we don't really have a good perspective or bar on all the different ways that we might navigate these things more successfully without having, you know, giant panic attacks and ending up in situations where our bodies become that dysregulated because we've pushed past something into something that we really didn't want to do, or, um, tried to do something that was beyond the scope of what our nervous system was letting us do. um I've seen people wanting to do something, being like, yeah, I'm gonna go to this place and it's gonna be so fun and exciting, and then sitting in the car being like, I just can't get out of the car, I just can't get out of the car. And the thing is like, sometimes somebody in that situation might need a little bit of extra encouragement. They might need a big good hug and be like, hey, I'll hold your hand and we'll go do this thing because that's what you want to do. And sometimes they actually really need us to stop and say, hey, you know what, you don't want to go for sure, you're not going to regret this later, you feel that, because this is about you, not me. All right, let's go home, right? We'd probably do that for ourselves if we were sitting in the car having that high anxiety, unable to get out because we really wanted to go there, but for whatever reason, our nervous system wasn't letting us do that today. And, some days we might really want to push back past, and other days we might not want to push past. Other days we might just want to go home. And, Either way, it's okay to listen to that in our children, and it's okay to listen to that in ourselves too. Like, it's valid to not do the thing or not go the place or make a different decision or back out. And, we can find deep perseverance or anything like that. Um, like, pushing past and all of those things, actually through making adjustments for ourselves so that when we go to past and do our best to do something that we really want to do because we want to do that thing and it feels exciting. Um, and just like with the concept of healthy attachment, right? It's like the concept of healthy attachment is we create a lot of security in our children so that they feel confident going out in the world knowing that they have a safety net to fall back on. And um, with somebody who has anxiety as one of the life experiences that they're having, um, that sense of creating the same security is just a lot more of an ongoing process, and it applies to so many more situations. um, I feel like one of the really helpful things about it is once we get into the flow of noting who our people are and what they like, what they don't like, what makes them most comfortable, how we can help them feel the most secure, and we start operating within like those parameters as much as possible as a lifestyle and ways to live. It also helps us to reset our nervous systems around some of the things that we experience, some of the pushing through and the pushing past that we didn't want to do, that didn't feel good to us, that, didn't actually help us in any way navigate these things more successfully. And um I I guess, like the multifold is learning what it is that, who your people are and what it is that might be piquing these senses within your children, and try and create as much safety and security around that and help them in as many ways through as many situations as possible, while also offering tools to regulate themselves and their nervous systems so that as they grow, they have the security and the positive experiences, as well as feeling like they have a handful of tools that could help them in any given situation. And on the other side of that too, there's always the encouragement that there can be really helpful resources through your local resources to help you support your child through their anxiety, and reaching out to get those resources looks different in different areas and stuff like that. But if your kiddo's navigating anxiety, like getting the most knowledge that you can of it and really trying to create that safety and security and help them feel like the world is, I mean, I want to say like help them feel like the world isn't impending doom. And I'm so anxious. I'm like, but it is impending doom. Oh, I laugh at myself so hard. um, But we can create that security as much as possible. And when those feelings are peaking within a person, honor them to the best of the ability that you're able to, within the constrictions of your life and your knowledge of, what your child needs in those moments, and continue to offer them lots of tools to help them regulate their nervous systems so that when those feelings are peaking, they're able to bring a sense of calm to their bodies and their nervous systems so they're not, spiking through feelings of impending doom all by them lonesomes, because that's a hard burden to carry. So I did talk for a long time there. Hopefully this has been helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked for a long time. The great part is I saw Phoenix putting his hands on his stomach and trying out my thing. How did it feel? It
didn't feel like much.
It didn't feel like much.
Is that supposed to be how it felt?
I mean,
am I supposed to go?
Just gentle touches, like you're giving yourself a hug on your tummy. You hold it like that. I guess it didn't feel like much to him. We'll have to work on that practice. All right. I'm going to stop the recording.
It kind of felt like a hug.
Kind of felt like a hug? All right.